Okay, welcome ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to this information sharing evening for Swan Hill and the General Municipality. I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land on which we meet and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. As I said, this is an information sharing meeting and an opportunity for questions as we go through. Now, I'll just run through who we have here tonight, and as you will know, the flood response is led by Vic SES, or SES Operations, and which we now have an Incident Control Centre here in Swan Hill. So firstly, just raise your hand as I go through your name, please. Incident Controller Chair, Commander Mick Sporton. Control Agency Operations Manager Jim O'Donnell. Operations Commander Rob Berry. Swan Hill City Council Bruce Myers, who's up the end there. Catchment Management Authority James Kelman, Mallee CMA. Victoria Police Inspector Amanda Bowden. She's over there. ADF, Australian Defence Forces Thomas Herter. AgVic, Robin Leishman. Ambulance Victoria, Mark Burns, Loddon Mallee Area Manager. So without any further ado, we've got a lot of speakers to get through tonight, so I'll hand over immediately to Commander Mick Sporton. Thanks, Mick.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Just for all the information, and thank you all for coming tonight. I know it's been a very stressful period for everybody. These sort of meetings are for community information. So what we'd like to do is we can leave any questions to the meeting's end. All the content that we're going to go through tonight should answer most of those questions anyway. You'll have that opportunity at the end of the session to ask those. So River Murray flood events like this generally last for quite some time. This will be probably for many weeks and even months as it progresses on its journey out of the area here, further downstream via Robinvale, Mildura, and eventually into South Australia. So with no further ado, I'll just pass over to SES Ops Manager Jim O'Donnell.
Good evening, thank you, Mick. So we're just here just to provide a little bit of a sit rep as to what the current situation is and what the likelihood and some predictions and expectations of what's coming down the river systems. At this stage, I can advise that floodwaters from the Campaspe and Golden Rivers have combined and flows down the Murray River have caused major flooding at Echuca. River levels at Echuca Wharf have exceeded the October 1993 flood levels of 94.77 metres and reached 94.92 metres on Monday, on the 24th. So as this flood peak extends downstream, major flooding is possible along the Murray River at Swan Hill, which may exceed the minor flood level of 4.5 metres around about the 27th or 30th of October. It may also reach a major flood level of 4.7 metres during the first week of November, around the 2nd, somewhere between the 2nd and 5th. As we know, it'll be very similar to the 93 flood levels, however no two floods are ever the same. The emergency services are monitoring Pentle Island, Tintinda, Beverford, Speewah and the surrounding areas for flood impacts. These are the areas at risk for some flooding. At this stage, the Swan Hill levee is not expected to be overtopped in this event. We have got some maps down the front here for viewing later on the track, and which James Cole will speak to at the moment. Currently, there's some sandbags are only available for community members in or at risk, and areas from Tuesday to Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. each day, located at the Logan CFA, Beverford CFA, and Ken Harrison Reserve in Swan Hill. There's some additional sandbag collection dates will be announced via the local media and Vic Emergency Aids. I'll hand over to Operations, Rob.
Thank you, Jim. So basically, at the moment we've got quite a number of crews working in around the areas. We've had the flood wardens working in around with us in the operations section to identify some low-lying areas in around the Tintinda Flats area. On the levee banks there, that there's some minor damage to with vehicles driving over, but also working with our hydrologists to work with the heights that are expected the flood levels to come up to, so that we can start to increase the height of those levee banks that are there. And we've also been working on today on identifying some areas of seepage that we've done some works around today to try and minimise any impact. That's planned to continue further as the flood gets closer. We've got crews working in Beverford tomorrow, some ADF crews potentially be working there, and we're planning on working our way up as we go through, as these identified low spots in the levee banks are identified, and we can get our ADF crews in there to do some work on those and increase the height of those levees. Also, as the weather permits, we've actually got an aircraft up here at the moment. They get up when they can with the weather to do some aerial observations to identify any issues, any breaches of levee banks, and we can then see the aerial shots in at the operations sections and the ICC to have a look at the impacts potentially they may have or are having, so that we can get crews out to those areas as soon as we can. Also, as of I think early this week, tomorrow, we'll have hopefully some ground crews up here to be able to do that same spot and give that reconnaissance into the Victoria Police, so that as well as them working on looking at the roads, hopefully we can feed some of that reconnaissance into them from area and ground crews as well, so that we can keep notifying when the roads are open and closed. Currently in the Swan Hill SES, there's a rapid relief team working, and they've got a machine there they use for sandbagging. As of this morning, they had 21,000 sandbags packed, and they've had another 14,000 sandbags done today. And so those sandbags are packed, loaded onto trucks, taken out on pallets to the areas that need them, so that the crews can just start work on the levee walls or where they need them instead of bagging them. We've also had up to 60 truckloads of sands delivered to affected areas that were able to then use in some areas and around town. And that will continue on as we keep moving forward. I'll pass you over to Bruce from Swan Hill City Council.
Hi everyone, just want to give you all a bit of an update. You would all probably be aware that the Swan Hill Stadium was activated this time last week as the Emergency Relief Centre, primarily for our neighbours in Gannawarra and Bullock, because obviously a number of places over that way were experiencing either evacuation warnings or worse. So in that time we've assisted about 100 people, and I'd like to actually thank the accommodation houses throughout Swan Hill and Lake Boga for helping us put those people up while they get their affairs in order. So the basketball stadium is basically staffed during business hours, but we have the number on the door for 24 hours access. So if someone does turn up, they will be assisted. Just wanted to stress that it is primarily for our neighbours from Gannawarra, the people that are actually under the flood evacuation warnings at the moment. We've also had a number of people, thank you very much, kindly offering all sorts of services and goods. We ask that you go to a website called Givit, G-I-V-I-T, and you can fill out the form in there, and it just makes it a bit easier to capture what you're offering and how we can get it to the people who need it when they need it. We have no one sleeping there at the moment, which is a good thing. As I said, most people are out being accommodated elsewhere, and also big thanks to the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing. They've been providing funding assistance to a number of people from Corangan, Quambatook and surrounds. So it is a 24-hour operation, but it's not staffed overnight at this stage until if we end up having people sleeping there, it will go to 24 hours. Thanks, Bill.
Good evening everyone, I'm James Kellerman from the Mallee Catchment Management Authority. Just a bit of background, so CMAs are a state government-owned entity. We work on flood intelligence products in these types of events. So ourselves and the North Central CMA are placed within the Incident Control Centre. We work with agencies such as the Bureau of Meteorology, who provide flood intelligence, and they provide a flow rate, and we create mapping products like you see down the front here to prepare and inform the Incident Control Centre and community so that you can take appropriate preparation actions. Just a note, I'll put a placeholder here. Over the coming week, we're going to be working with small communities downriver from Swan Hill, so we'll have pop-up stalls so that you can sit around a table with us, pour over the maps and have a two-way conversation. That'll add to our intelligence too, because you can only do so much from satellite imagery and gauge stations. Local intelligence helps inform our understanding of how floodplains operate. So keep your eyes peeled in the social media and on radio, etc. for those pop-up events in places like Naya, Coyangle, Vinifera, Boundary Bend, Robinvale, etc. I'll talk just briefly to the maps that are down the front, and feel free to have a look after the formal proceedings today, and I'm sure the ICC will be looking to make some more information available to those of you who are at home tonight. But just an update on flows. So Swan Hill is currently at 4.3 metres of height. BOM's forecasting a major event at 4.7 during the first week of November. Walkall Junction is currently at 10.4 metres with 11 as a potential in early November. Boundary Bend for residents there, 8.2 metres currently with a potential 8.5 or moderate around Friday, so that's a bit sooner. And Euston is currently at 49.8 metres, potentially going to a minor flood of 50.9 during mid-November. Those numbers don't mean a lot to each of us. I know you don't know the gauge height at your own property, and that's where these mapping products become useful. But what I would say is we're very early in this event. We've got flows coming from multiple tributaries, so it makes it very hard to get an exact prediction of the potential flow rate and therefore the inundation map. So what's before you tonight is a communication tool. The BOM suggesting that we may have a flood in the order of the 1993 flood. Now, unfortunately, we haven't got good aerial imagery of the 1993 flood, so our hydrologists have done a lot of power work in the Mid-Murray flood study to produce the maps that are up the front tonight. So they're a prediction. So they look at where the water was or what the height was and what in 1993, and then they extrapolate that across the landform. So it's not entirely accurate. So don't think, oh gosh, I'm in that blue dot, so that's a big problem. It's a tool for you to say, okay, where are the potential impacts that may be predicted at this point in time from the BOM? So a big caveat over these maps, they're just a tool for you to start prioritising where you look in the landscape. Also to note, the maps on the right-hand side here have some pink on them. That's the 1 in 100 year flood, so that's not relevant to this event. It will be lower than that, and at the moment the BOM's predicting it could be in the order of what we saw in 1993, which is the inundation extents you see on those maps there. I think that's probably all I have, but I'm happy to hang around at the front later on if people are interested in trying to find their property. The maps are ordered from the most upstream, so Lake Boga there to Swan Hill, Tintinda, and then I think we finish out probably north of Nybernifer anyway, somewhere down there. So if you do get a chance to have a look, but I'm sure as the weeks unfold, that's probably the one thing I did need to say. Our hydrologists in the ICC and the CMAs are working with the Bureau of Meteorology every single day to refine those forecasts. In the next few days, we hope to have a much more reliable product to predict the heights in our area. But again, in none of those circumstances at the moment is any impact predicted in the township of Swan Hill. It's the more outlying areas. And the best prediction at this point is in the order of the 1993, which is what these maps are. But over the coming few days, that'll get a lot tighter. And then by in a week's time, when we start to see some of those flows in the main river system from, Echuca will have peaked, you'll see the Loddon inflows in, we'll have a much better idea for towns like Robinvale and Mildura, but that's still at least probably a week away. That's all for me.
Good evening, Inspector Gerard Cruz, and I'm the Swan Hill Inspector. So a couple of key messages for us, and the first one I'll start with is about driving through floodwater. So over the last couple of weeks, there's been literally hundreds of people who have had to be saved in floodwater, and that puts a massive impact on us all as far as the different services go, trying to help those people who have decided to navigate their way through floodwater. Sure, many of you have driven through floodwater before. The biggest problem is it washes away roads underneath. It's really hard to predict the depth. There's sticks and rocks and all sorts of bits and pieces. So I'd just ask you to think about not driving through flood water under any circumstances. One of the things we've found is that as the water moves around, you'll find the roads open perhaps in the morning and you'll return in the afternoon and it's covered in water. So you need to be really conscious about that. Obviously, if you become aware of a road that's closed and that water's gone, please let us know. We'll have some people down there and they can assess it. Vic Roads can come and assess it and decide whether that road should be opened or not. The Vic Roads map that I'm sure many of you, or Vic Roads Live, about roads that are open and closed, they're struggling, I'll put it simply, struggling to keep up to date with the amount of changes that occur. So when it comes to you planning about where you might want to go, you're going to have a good think. We've got a lot of people who are stuck here, haven't been able to get back to Melbourne, for instance, number of people travelling around that can't get to their destination, and likewise about people returning here. So need to think about that and how you move around. In regards to you having some sort of plan about what you are going to do, obviously that'll be informed by some of those predictions or on some of those maps about where you live, whether you're within Swan Hill itself or outside of Swan Hill. So you need to have a really good plan, a really solid plan that's going to work for you. So what about your medication, what about water, what about food, those sorts of things, and that'll be influenced on where you're at. If you decide that you're going to leave, and we've had a number of people who've decided they would stay in their house and then later call on us to come along and save them. So, and help them get out. You need to think about your situation and make a decision on that. You may have a plan that's based on previous floods, as we've gone around Beloke and Gunawarra and now here. A number of people have got plans. That was a number of years ago, so you really need to think about yourself and whether that plan that you've got is really going to work for you now. And whether that's around age or mobility or a whole lot of things will influence how solid your plan is. And all I'd ask is have somebody who's going to be honest with you. It's really hard, if the family members to turn around and say, we don't think that's a great plan for you. So you need to think about, is that person going to be really bluntly honest with you and what's best in your interests. When it comes to ringing 000, can you please use that just for life-threatening incident issues that are occurring? Obviously that's what it's there for. If you're seeking information, 000 is not the number to call. You've got things like the Vic Emergency Act, a number of other places you can go to get information rather than ring 000. Now I've got a little list of things here I was meant to address and I think I have done them all. So certainly you'll see a lot of police. I think we're nearly about 100 mark at the moment, so there's lots and lots of more police around than what you would normally experience. If it comes to a point of having to evacuate everywhere, we'll certainly work with the SES and others and knock on a whole lot of doors. And we've already been doing that to this point, so some of you may have had your doors already knocked on. If you've got any neighbours that you think are vulnerable in the sense it might be mobility, it could be around getting food and medication and those sorts of things, by all means you feel free to let us know about that. And if you choose to leave your place, please ring the police assistance line and report that you're no longer at your place. That gives us a picture of what places we need to keep an eye on during your absence. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, guests and also members of the community. Thank you for your attendance. It's a very informative session tonight and very worthwhile, so thank you for making the effort. On behalf of the ADF presence here, you'll see a lot more of us around over the next few coming weeks. So it's a tri-service environment, so we're going to have Army, Navy, Air Force here in support of the lead agencies that will be leading this through this crisis. So it's all about where we can support and provide services to bolster the services currently on task, is about them getting those tasks in and provide the resources where we can. We won't take over anything, we'll be guided and we'll be led by the emergency service agencies in a coordinated approach. So you'll see us a lot more around the roads, the streets, so there's a few more heavy vehicles in the area, so I do please envisage that you look out for them and give them a little bit of right of way as well. So currently we've got a task underway down in Kahuna, which the ADF members are going there doing an assessment and doing some works down there as well. They've completed some tasks as well, which include the Patrol's Bridge, Loddon River area there, just out of Kerrang. So they've laid about 2,500 sandbags and worked again with the other agencies, the CFA, SES, and also members of the community that have rolled up their sleeves and gotten dirty with us down in there and doing the sandbagging. So it's a really good, vigorous environment that we're all one team and we all get the job done, and we're all learning from each other and we're all sharing information. So we've got approximately 30 troops in the area at the moment, and that's going to start swelling over the next few days, oncoming weeks, as the need arises when there's more assessments done and there's a lot more resources that have been asked for. So please, we do and encourage to talk to us. We are all approachable, and never a stupid question is a dumb question, because we may not know, you may not know, but it's all about information sharing, so we all can focus on the job and do it very safely and do it in a very communicated approach. So that's it from me. Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robin. I'm an animal health officer here in Swan Hill with Agriculture Victoria, and my colleague over here, Dr. Baron Sky, is also here from Agriculture Victoria. After we've finished the formal questions, Baron and I will both be available to answer any animal health related queries you may have. So please feel free to talk to us. She's pretty smart. She's been through this stuff before, so she will be able to help you. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I do encourage everyone to pick up a copy of the community newsletter, which is available from one of our fantastic SES workers, or there's some on the tables out the front. Within that, it does have the Agriculture Victoria 1800 number, which is a dedicated line for our flood assistance. So that's 1800 226 226. It also has a link to our website. On there is a lot of information about the state government funding that is available to help in the recovery part of this activity. Obviously, we've got a bit of time before you're going to be thinking about recovery, but that time also allows you to, as the police have said, make some early decisions, make good choices for yourself and your family, and if you have livestock, make some good choices for them. So I hope everyone stays safe, and I'll hand over to our good friends from Ambulance Victoria. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I do know probably a lot of people in the room recognise me. I'm born and bred in Swan Hill, so I've got your best interest at heart. And I just sort of want to just take a couple of minutes to explain what Ambulance Victoria have got in place to look after the community in the coming days and coming weeks. We are lucky we've learnt from our townships further upstream than us and what we've put in place and what's worked really well and some of the things we could have done better. But so far, so good. So Ambulance Victoria put in extra resources into the townships of Rochester, so far Rochester, Echuca, Charlton, and we've moved resources around out of Charlton into Wycheproof and those sort of areas, just so as where we can be assured that we're still going to provide care to the community. We have extra staff coming in from all over the state, places that we can't drive to, for example, getting staff in and out of Echuca recently and into Kerrang. Before the levies went up, we will fly them in under helicopter or in a helicopter. So we do have resources available. I think that the message loud and clear from everybody else up on the table tonight If you're going to act nice and early, like don't leave it too late to leave your house or leave your area. And once we do become isolated, or if we do become isolated in little communities such as Korean, Charlton, etc., if you do require an ambulance and you ring 000 for an ambulance, be rest assured an ambulance will get to you. It may be a little bit of a delay in the way they work out. So we're working with SES, ADF, VicPol, and the like. So it might be a matter of getting a helicopter into you, it might be a matter of getting a boat into you, bringing you around to the ambulance, etc. But be rest assured that if you do need help will come to you. And I think it's a testimony if you could see the amount of vehicles around and the way that all these agencies are working together on a daily basis. Information is shared back to our control centre, so as we know exactly what's going on a daily basis. So I just sort of want to allay any anxieties that you may have, and feel free to ask questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's a very good segue because this is the end. So we'll go to questions now. So I don't know whether we've got a roving microphone anywhere. Yes, we have a roving microphone over there. So yes, so put your hand up and if you need to ask a question.
Thanks, guys. We'll try and get you in order. I think there was one in there, Kimberly. I'll just ask that we keep the questions pretty much to the point. We'll all be hanging around afterwards for quite a while, so you can come and ask questions afterwards as well. But just in the interest of time and the live stream, we'll take a reasonable amount of questions and then you can ask us more after. Thanks.
Morris, go ahead.
Thanks. I've been asked to raise the issue by a long-term resident of Swan Hill that the levee bank near the pumping station is being undermined by the height of the river. And that, if that happens, if it continues to undermine the levee bank, it will mean that the whole of that part of Swan Hill where the pumping station is going to go under very quickly. So I would ask the authorities to please check this levee bank near the pumping station and to make sure that it is not undermined to a dangerous level. Thank you.
Morris, is that the Lower Murray Water Pumping Station or the one down near the Riverside Park?
No, the Lower Murray.
The Lower Murray Water one, yep. Next. Yep.
Colin O'Brien, I live at 137 River Road. I was here for the 56 High River, and I've been here for every other high river. I think we'd all be much better to say that we are controlling the high river than using the word flood all the time. That just seems to spook everybody because everybody now rings and asks, are we going to flood? Just because we're doing sandbags doesn't mean we're flooding. We're doing work to stop the river from coming over, not actually fighting the flood. So if we could drop that word out, we'd all relax a little bit and we'd probably do much better. The other thing is I heard of a person then talk about the spot that he's concerned about. There is places that we are all concerned about because we can all beat water that's going to run over the top. But we can't beat that water that pushes a bank in and comes out because you can't get there and you can't do anything. We don't know who to go to with these problems that we know are there. It seems that it's always somebody else. So I hope we can find out tonight, those of us that have got a place that we know is a concern, that we can go to that person and something, we go with them. We'll show them where they are. There's no problem there. It's just finding the right person to give that information to. And I hope I've relaxed a few people from using the word high river, not flood, every time we want to talk about water.
Thanks, Colin. Nick, you answer that?
Absolutely. The word flood, well, it is what it is. I don't think it rolls off the tongue a little bit better than inundation, but high river is probably not a bad suggestion. Look, any of these suggestions that we do have quite a number of flood wardens who are, like yourself, long-standing members of the community who've actually grown up on the river. So we have a teleconference with those people on a daily basis, and we're getting that intel. But obviously we're only as good as the information that we receive. So we certainly welcome any information that the public does have, or any intel that we may have missed. So if you do have anything, and my physical operations officer is been writing everything down and all the addresses, so we'll certainly be checking on all those tomorrow. Thanks.
So you're right, Cole, you can tell the right man. Awesome. Next question, yes, David.
David Quayle. In the event of a predicted heavy downpour, where I might think I need some sandbags, can I pick them up myself, or what is the procedure?
Yeah, good question. So in relation to flash flooding events, the supercells come down and we get inundated with water, and we have those water inundation inside the houses. You can call the 132 500 number, and our wonderful volunteers will come and provide some assistance. If there's some sandbagging that needs to be done, they're more capable and willing to help in that situation. If you know that your place is prone to some flash flooding or the likes of that, you can attend one of our listed sandbag collection points, or you can attend at your local hardware store. They sell them there as well. Many options in which you can collect some sandbags and do a problem. There is a sandbag flyer at the front on how to sandbag correctly and properly, so that your efforts aren't wasted, to ensure that it's been done. And the bag it, lift it, lock it, flyer as well, which one of the crew have got over there. Thank you.
Next question. Do we have any? Well, that's fantastic. We've nearly answered all the questions. Great
Just at the
information.
back.
Oh, we've got another one up the back. I can't see who it is.
Thank you, Matt Rowlands here. Just a question, just in regards to levies and inspections with levies that are going on. Could we please have a bit more of a broad or a bit wider indication of where those inspections are up to in our areas? You know, is it from Murrabit to here, or where are these inspections up to, and what are you finding?
Yeah, so some of those inspections we've got, they're flood wardens, as mentioned earlier on, that they're at most days, and they're identifying areas in their areas. But happy for if you've got an area that you know about, that there's areas of concern, there's any seepage or weepage through the levee banks, happy for that to come into the Swan Hill ICC, and we can arrange for our flood wardens to go and have a look, or someone to have a look. We've actually got an engineer coming up here tomorrow to have a look at a couple of points. We were supposed to go today, we got turned back because of the weather. So hopefully we can get an engineer up here, and if we can get a list of all these ones, and happy for those to come into the Incident Control Centre, that why we've got an engineer up here to a specialist in looking at those, that we can get him out to any of those areas and come up with mitigation plans around that. So happy for those to come into the operations section of the ICC. Otherwise, if you know who your local flood warden is in your area, if you get hold, notify them as well, and they can go out and do some work, and they tap into us every day. They'll either ring me direct, or we do the teleconference with them. I'm so happy for that information to come in, so please let us know. We can't do the works on them if you guys don't let us know where they are. And we have the wardens out there, but they can't be everywhere, so please notify the Incident Control Centre, and we can get those looked at.
Does everybody know who their local flood warden is? So if you're within the town boundary, you're fine within the levee bank area. All those outside, who knows? Nobody? No. So we need everybody to know who their local flood warden is. So we've got a list of them and where they are.
I have got a list. I'll see if I can get that put onto the Swan Hill Community Facebook page of the local flood wardens. We'll see if we can get that all organised, so at least you know who they are, and happy, we'll check with them, they're happy to have their details on there as well, so that we can have that out there available for you guys to contact them as well. So I'll work with the councils and get that up on the community Facebook page.
So a lot of people here may not be on Facebook or social media. We've found there's a lot of different ways of getting information. Is there another way of getting that out?
I'll pass it over to Beck over there, who's our media person.
Thank you. That's probably a good segue because I think we're nearly at the end of questions. So we're doing communications through quite a range of mediums. So there is the Big Emergency app. If you don't have the internet, you can call the Big Emergency hotline and they can read the warnings to you and give you other information. The number is 1800 226 226. This week we'll be doing a daily update on 3SH every day at around 2 o'clock. And this is really the first communication where we're having this two-way discussion. So there will be more potentially meetings. We spoke about pop-up stalls. The radio, The Guardian, has been providing good information on our behalf, and many other things, I guess. But we are really trying to make sure that the information is accessible for everyone.
Sure that we do have the next community meeting we have. I'll try and make sure, and we'll work through Beck to make sure that we bring those flood laws names and that to the meeting, so that anyone here that hasn't already been able to find that out, we can actually get that to them here at the meeting.
Thanks, Rob. The question was, can we compare 93 to 2011?
Yes, we can.
There we go. I'm trying my voice for a second. As we say, look, no two floods are the same, so it is difficult to compare, but it will be similar, if that makes any sense. So it will inundate some areas that it didn't in 93. Perhaps it will cross over in areas like it did in 2011 or it did in back in the 70s. So quite unpredictable, but it is going to be similar. But as I say, no two floods are alike, unfortunately.
Thanks. I think James might be able to provide a bit more on that as well. There'll probably be a bit further flood extent than what we saw in 2011, which is a product of the multiple river systems all coming into high flows at the same time, which we didn't necessarily have all of those happening in 2011. And that kind of encompasses like the Loddon, the Campaspe, the Goulburn, and the New South Wales rivers as well. James, though, will probably be able to give a bit more.
And sadly not just to say, fantastic question. I asked the same question of the modellers this morning, and they're preparing that information to show us the difference. They did have one data point though, which was sadly not here, was at Boundary Bend, and they said it was approximately a metre higher in 1993 than it was in 2011 at Boundary Bend. But what we will look to do, because what is really helpful, I think, as I said earlier, gauge heights don't mean much to anyone, but having maps so you can see all the different significant floods on a website, whether it be councils, SES or the CMAs, could be a really useful tool. And when you consider multiple different ones, you can see the differences in extent, and as you just heard as well too, no two floods are the same, and that's because the contributions from the different tributaries make such a difference to the height. It can even, as you heard, probably might have heard on the news, upstream where the Goulburn came in, it slowed the Murray down, and so we can see that when one tributary downstream is contributing a lot, that alters the height. So it could be the same flow rate as a previous flood in the same location, but the height could be different. So no two floods are the same, and the best information will come from the ICC in the coming days and weeks as those flow contributions hit the river, and they can get a more finite look at what's actually going to occur. But they're saying at the moment, in the order of the 1993, which is what these approximation maps are here, but point taken, and definitely those maps are coming for 2011. And 56 is actually shown on there in the purple, which is a very large flood. That's the 1 in 100 year. But yeah, we will get to that point hopefully.
Just up the front, Kimberly, I think last question. Thank you.
Pick those maps up on a website somewhere.
Hi, Sarah Bloom at the end of Tintinda Central Road and Matheson Road. Can you please tell me if there's been any modelling done as to when the predicted threat could be over to our levee banks in the Tintinda, Murraydale and communities around Swan Hill? Are we talking like the end of the year, late November?
Yeah, sorry, I'm actually the Mallee CMA, so I'm Swan Hill downstream, so I haven't got your location, but I'm happy to grab your details and get North Central CMA, because I'm sure those heights of the levees will be known by the ICC, and I understand that they're working through all the different levees to understand the height that they currently are at versus the predicted height in the river, and if it's possible to amend and get those higher, then yes, but if not, then messaging would go out.
So, I mean, what I'm referring to is how long can we expect the threat to be present for? Like how long does this flow take to go through and pass through the town? If we evacuate, how long do we expect it to be off our fronts for? That's really where I'm coming from.
Gotcha. And look, I think that comes back to the other one too, which is in the days and weeks ahead we'll have a clearer picture. And the BOM did note to me this afternoon that they're not predicting the peaks yet for downstream of Swan Hill. The flows they're predicting are just, it may get to this and greater potentially. So they don't yet have the peaks organised, and therefore the lag and the duration is still not known. Yeah, so I'm sorry. The answer's not there. We're here trying to provide the information that is known, because that will provide relief and comfort to many people. As a high river event text, as we spoke about earlier, but not everything is known yet, and the commitment is there to keep this line of dialogue open so that we can all work through this together as it unfolds. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, and actually goes well with the question I had over here about whether we're going to make these maps available. We may make these maps available in the next newsletter, but what I'd like to do is have a better map. And we've spoken about how this map is very estimated. We'd like to provide a better one, and perhaps we can have some more detail about how long we expect the river to stay up and how long we expect that threat to go for. Sounds like we're a bit all over the place, but it is a really dynamic situation with all of those rivers, and the ongoing rain makes it really hard to predict what will happen more than a couple of weeks out. So thanks for that question. Thanks for the question over here. Read the maps. We'll make sure we get something out in the next newsletter. All right, last question.
Hi, I'm just from Pennell Island, and I'm just worried about the bridge at Pennell Island going under. There is actually a levee bank around Pennell Island at our houses, but because it hasn't been maintained for more than a few years now, what's the emergency situation at Pennell Island, and is there people coming in now to check on it?
Rob, you may be able to chat about what happened yesterday.
So I can take that one on board, but Ron Atkin, who is one of our lead flood wardens, he actually lives around Pennell Island, so I'll tap him tomorrow. He hasn't raised the concern with me, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't been looked at either. I will speak to Ron tomorrow and get his appraisal of that area and what he thinks, whether we need to do any works in around that area or what can be done. So I'll take that on board with Ron, and he probably sees it every day because he lives in that area anyway. But I'll take that question on board and I'll get Ron to have a look. And if there's any concerns around that, we'll try and get some sort of messaging out around that.
And just to add to that, yesterday we had the incident controller and the hydrologist out at Pennell Island with Ron, so very cognizant of the potential risk out there and really focused on it. So certainly hasn't flown under our radar at all, and we're linking in with that local knowledge.
Thank you. Last question, was it?
Yeah, I think that was the last question. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
What is the use of telling us that the river heights are 70 metres or whatever it might be, when we know that the river height is 4.4 or 4.3 metres? Why, for you people, you're coming up here, you're saying the river at Robin Vale is coming up to 70 metres, and you people are saying it's coming such a height? To the ordinary layperson, that's meaningless. Why don't you talk about, as I just said, the height of the river here in Swan Hill is 4.4 or thereabouts. Talk in layman's language so we don't understand the height of the river from year to year instead of the 70 metres or whatever other figure you're throwing around.
So, if those of you hear the question is why some reports of river heights in OHD and why are some reported as a local levy?
Good
question, and one that I was grappling with this afternoon myself, and it's because the flood forecasting comes in those numbers. So the numbers that I quoted earlier are directly from the flood forecasting. But if the community prefers the information in the smaller digits, that's possible as well too. It's just about how we package it up, and if that's a preference for the broader community, that's easy in communicating to do that. But the forecasts that come from the BOM, the official flood warnings, will have to remain in those gauges, and that's just how the gauge records the information at the individual site. And it is actually different as you move down the river. They're not all in the metres AHD, which is the big number. Many of them are in that, but some are still in the smaller number 2, which means maybe 9 metres or 4 metres or whatever. So if there's a community preference, I'm sure in our newsletter and products like that, we can provide even both if that was what was helpful, because it does need to be helpful, otherwise there's no point in communicating it.
I would just say as well, yes, it is a bit annoying that some are in the local level and some are AHD, but the minor, moderate and major flood levels will be made clear, regardless of how the gauge is described. We'll always be clear about whether we expect the river to get to minor, moderate or major flood levels, and we'll try and give an expectation of what that impact might be. And the newsletter talks a little bit about what, as a general rule, you might expect to see at each of those flood class levels. I'll just hand back to Bill to close us out, but we'll all hang around for a while after this, and please come and ask us any questions that you may have.
Thank you. That looks like it concludes things here. I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the volunteers here tonight, all the SES people, all the agencies here. One thing, times like this brings out the best in people, and it's a great time to be building community spirit and connecting with your neighbours. There's a lot of people spend time on screens these days, and it's only these types of things that actually brings people out and really builds their communities. The ADF, big shout out to the ADF, really rely on you. Done a lot of work already and will continue to do so. Also, we talked about questions afterwards. We have council staff here as well. CEO Scott Barber, Director of Planning, Heather Green, and of course Bruce. If you're for any within Levy, Town Levy or Rockvale Levy for that matter, issues. We have Tim Nitsky from Golden Murray Water who's here as well somewhere. He's down here. We couldn't get anybody from Lower Murray Water on potable water and sewage. I don't think we have anybody here. We have? Yep, up the back there. I can't see who it is, but yep, just make yourself known for any potable water or sewage issues. So I think that's about it. So thanks everybody. I think it's been a fantastic information sharing evening. It'll be the first of quite a few, I guess, as given my experience here with floods. It's not as long as Coles, but they're usually fairly long and protracted events, and of course that all predicated on not much more rainfall. So yeah, thank you for coming, and I hope you've got a lot out. Thank you.